Okay, so in the last arguments you had, were you trying to solve the problem or were you trying to make them feel how much they hurt you? Have you ever caught yourself mid-argument and realized you weren't trying to resolve anything but were performing to make the other person feel bad? Have you ever replayed the conversation in your head not to understand it better but to find the perfect line that would have made the other person feel worse? Or have you ever failed at achieving something you wanted and instead of asking, okay, what can I do differently? You thought, of course it didn't work. I can never do anything right. This entire video is about whether you can be honest about it all, about your motives in arguing and the motives of your self-talk. What if you are toxic to yourself? The moment you seriously consider, what if I'm the problem, something inside you might push back. Hard. And that pushback is either the beginning of honesty or the exact moment you shut the door and walk away from changing for the better. It's often much harder to catch this pattern in yourself when it doesn't involve another person because there's no visible loud conflict, no argument, nor partner to point at. Let's suppose you didn't get a job. The project flopped, you tried something new and it didn't work. Normal life stuff that happens to literally everyone. And instead of asking, okay, what went wrong? What can I do differently? You notice yourself thinking, of course it didn't work. Nothing ever works for me. I can't do anything right. Why do I even try? You feel like shit about yourself. The part that's hard to admit is that such feeling may not be essentially unpleasant. There's something in it that may feel like relief, like settling into a familiar role as a loser, freeing yourself from further responsibility. Because I'm someone who always fails becomes a big part of your identity. It explains everything and asks nothing of you. If you're someone who can never do anything right, then there is no point in analyzing what went wrong. No point in adjusting your approach, no point in trying again. The verdict is always the same. You're broken, the world is unfair, and effort is futile. Suppose Luke sends his CV and gets rejected. Path A Luke feels the sting, sits with it for a bit, then opens the rejection email again and thinks, okay, what can I learn from this? What was weak? What do I do next? It may not be joyful, but it's forward. Path B Luke doesn't even open it again. He closes his laptop and thinks, I knew it. I'm not good enough. I've never been good enough. Everyone else just has something I don't. He might even tell a friend about it not to get advice, but to hear, yes, the world is so unfair, and this little hit of pity from himself or from others becomes the substitute for doing the work, improving and achieving his goals. Pay attention to whether reaching for comfort is a way to enable you to try again or a way of life. Pay attention to whether your first response to a setback is curiosity or collapse, and pay attention to whether that collapse feels strangely safe. Now, what is your first impulse in conflict? This section is the most important one in the entire video. It's about how the seeds of victim mentality can manifest during conflict with other people. Think of the last time someone said something that genuinely stung. Maybe a friend or a parent called you out on something, maybe a partner set a boundary, maybe a coworker gave you feedback that hit a nerve. Now, what was the first thing that fired in your brain? There are two fundamentally different paths here. Let's say Luke's friend tells him, hey, you've been kind of self-centered lately. Like, every conversation somehow ends up being about your stuff. Path A Luke feels the hit. It doesn't feel great, but his first thought is, have I been doing that? When? What can I do to fix this? He might even ask, can you give me an example? I want to understand what you mean. Path A is oriented towards clarity and resolution. Even if you're upset, even if your pride is bruised, your impulse is to solve, to figure out what's true. It doesn't mean he agrees automatically. It means his first impulse is to check for truth and resolve the problem, not to counterattack. Path B sounds like this. How dare you? After everything Okay, I need to make them understand what they just did to me. I need to find the words that will make them feel exactly how I feel right now. I need them to see the damage. I need them to feel guilty. Path B Luke hears the same thing from the same friends and his brain immediately starts to form an attack. He didn't address the feedback, he didn't even engage with it. He flipped the entire thing so that now his friend is the one who hurt him. His friend is going to walk away from that conversation feeling guilty for having said anything. And Luke will feel vindicated. And nothing, absolutely nothing, will be resolved. One more thing here. There's a habit that goes with Pay B. I call it the rehearsal. You replay the conversation in your head over and over, but not to understand it, to win it. You're composing the devastating line you should have said, the one that would have left them speechless, and you keep editing it, polishing it, sharpening it, until you've built this imaginary courtroom where you deliver the closing soul-crushing argument and everyone sees how right you were. Punchline. Devastating, perfect, and completely useless because it doesn't solve or improve anything. A person who takes path A is improving himself and his relationship. Even if the wording isn't perfect or his hurt shows a little, his partner will see that he's taking the feedback seriously. He'll feel listened to and seen. And the habit of checking whether feedback is true and reflecting on your own behavior is a genuinely good one to build. The person who takes path B does the opposite. He further entrenches a bad habit and hurts his friends in the process. It's not just about solving the immediate problem, it's about improving your behavior, your thinking, your communication, and your relationships over time. Do you want resolution or do you want to win? When the goal isn't a win-win resolution, it is one of the three things and none of them are pretty. In fact, resolution might be the last thing you want. The other goals are the following. 1. Control. You don't want to understand the other person. You want your partner to fold, to comply, to stop having their own perspective, and just accept yours because you made it too emotionally painful for them to disagree. And if they push back, you escalate because they haven't surrendered yet. 2. Emotional dependency. Some people never learned to manage their own distress internally, so they need the other person's guilt, their panic, and strong response as a way to calm down. The conflict isn't really about whatever started it. It's about seeing in their eyes that they care enough to drop everything and tend to your wound. And once you get that, the issue itself stops mattering. 3. The one that goes deeper than both is that some people just don't know how to live in peace and be happy. This topic honestly deserves its own video, and I'll make one someday because identity around suffering creates one of the hardest cycles to break. Some people have been in pain for so long, have built so much of their identity around their struggles, their wounds, their story of being the one who suffers, that they literally don't know who they are without it. If the conflict gets resolved, then what? If you're not the wronged one, if nobody's hurting you right now, who are you? Resolution doesn't just require effort, it threatens the very foundation of how you understand yourself. And letting go of that identity, even when it's destroying your relationships, feels like letting go of yourself and not knowing what to replace it with. Just notice, do you hold on to conflicts longer than they need to last? Not because the issue is dramatically hard to resolve, but because being in conflict is a familiar role. The subtle part that makes this so hard to see in yourself is that path B might feel right. I'm not manipulating, I'm expressing my feelings, I have a right to be heard. And yes, you do. But if you want this relationship, if you want to keep it and enjoy it, then considering and respecting your partner's feelings isn't some noble sacrifice you're making for their benefit. It's rational self-interest. You don't get to demand that someone stay close to you while simultaneously treating their perspective as unnecessary. The person who follows every emotional impulse without questioning it, who thinks I feel it, therefore it's valid, therefore everyone must blindly accept and embrace it. That person isn't rationally selfish, but irrational. The difference is that rational selfishness means I want this relationship to be good, so it's in my interest to treat this person well. Irrationality means I want what I want right now in this relationship, and your feelings are in the way. In the long run, if one is running the victim mentality pattern, nobody wins. A partner may just stop bringing things up. And Luke may call that a good relationship because there are no more conflicts, but there are no more conflicts because there is no more honesty. And eventually, no more relationship. The desire to be understood is always natural and healthy. The keyword is desire. The actions one takes to achieve this desire can and often are unhealthy. While wanting to be understood is healthy, you also have to do your best to understand others who you care about. While wanting to be understood is healthy, wanting to be obeyed is not. The first invites a conversation, the second demands a dramatic performance. Pay attention to which one you actually want, because you might tell yourself it's the first one when it's really the second. Before you react, what do you actually want? The next time you feel that surge, that hit in your chest when someone says something that hurts, stop and ask yourself these two questions. Why am I reacting this way? And then the harder one. What is my honest goal with this reaction? Not how do I defend myself? Let's say Luke's partner tells him, "You've been really dismissive of me lately." Luke starts feeling defensive. If Luke asks himself, why am I reacting this way? He might land on, because it hurts to be told I'm doing something wrong, because it hurts to admit I'm doing or have been doing something wrong for a while. The second question is where the deeper truth lives. What is my honest goal right now? What do I want to happen next? Does Luke want to understand what his partner is experiencing? Does he want to figure out if there's something he genuinely hasn't noticed? Or does he want his partner to take it back? Does he want them to feel bad for bringing it up? Does he want to launch into a list of everything he's done right so they'll realize they are being ungrateful? Because the goal determines everything that follows. If the honest goal is understanding and peace, one will ask a question aimed at resolution. If the honest goal is to make the other person retreat, one will resort to performing. And the frequent reason quarrels persist is that people never pause long enough to figure out what is the honest goal of their specific reactions. They just react habitually. Going into the roots takes courage. I mean, going deeper than just they offended me, questioning what is it about what they said that actually threatens me. Am I angry because they are wrong, or am I angry because I'm afraid they might be right? Am I defending the rational position, or am I defending my identity? Luke might realize, if he's honest with himself, that the reason his partner's words hit so hard isn't that his partner is being unfair. It's because Luke knows that he has been dismissive. And that is terrifying. So his impulse might be to make it go away, to make the partner the problem for saying it, rather than dealing with the thing itself. This takes real effort. Not just noticing the reaction, but tracing it all the way down to what it's protecting. And the answer, almost always, is some version of, I'm protecting myself from having to see something about myself that I'm not ready, or I don't want to, or I'm afraid to face. If one can learn to do this, to catch the reaction, ask what they actually want, and trace the root honestly, they've already broken half the cycle. Everything I'm about to describe in the rest of this video becomes much easier to recognize once you've built this habit. The signs you might not want to see. I'm going to go through a list of patterns now. Having one of these occasionally doesn't make you a toxic manipulator, but having several of them consistently as your default response to conflict is a pattern worth taking seriously. First, you keep score. You remember every sacrifice you made, every time you showed up, every favor, not because you're happy you did it, but because you're stockpiling the ammunition for word bombing, so that the moment a conflict arises, you can deploy it. Second, your pain always outranks theirs. This is a big one. When someone comes to you with something you did that hurt them, your first, and this is important, first impulse isn't to listen, but to redirect. Third, you treat boundaries as rejection. When someone draws a reasonable limit like, I need you to stop going through my phone, or I don't want to talk about this when we're both this heated, you interpret it as a personal rejection or punishment rather than a reasonable limit. You don't hear a person protecting themselves, you hear a person telling you how little you matter. A request for a pause becomes abandonment. A locked phone becomes a secret. I need some space becomes I don't want you. The other person stops feeling safe to have any needs around you at all. You confuse accountability with attack. When someone gives you honest feedback, even gently, you perceive it as if they slapped you. Every correction, every hey, I didn't like that, every can we talk about this lands like a verdict. And your defense isn't to address what you said, but to collapse or counterattack. You apologize strategically. You say, I'm sorry, not because you actually see what you did wrong. You say it like you are doing someone a favor. Like the apology itself is a gift they should be grateful for. Okay, I'm sorry, all right, see, I apologize. Don't you remember I apologized? If you recognize yourself in several of these, I know that doesn't feel good. Don't rush to dismiss it, and don't punish yourself for it either. This is the beginning of an escape route. Just observe these patterns in yourself for now. How to stop. If something I described so far sounded familiar and you're still watching, let's talk about what to actually do. Catch the rehearsal. This is the first and most practical thing. The moment you notice yourself mentally comprising the guilt trip monologue, the devastating speech about how much they hurt you, how unfair they were, how selfish and thoughtless and blind, stop. Just stop. And ask yourself, am I trying to solve this or am I trying to perform my suffering? If your answer is to perform, put the dramatizing script down. You don't need it. What you need is a conversation aimed at resolving a conflict, not exaggerating it. Separate the feeling from the strategy. You obviously can be hurt, feel pain, anger, betrayal, disappointment. What you shouldn't do if you want healthy relationships is to use those feelings as tools to control someone else's behavior. I'm hurt is a feeling. I'm hurt and therefore you have to do what I want is a forceful strategy that undermines your partner's agents. Practice the sentence you don't want to say. Here's a list of phrases that victim mentality makes difficult to say. Literally, physically difficult. You may feel resistance in your chest, in your throat. I think I might be wrong about this. Sorry, I overreacted. What did you actually mean by that? Can you explain? I might have misunderstood. You're right, I didn't see it that way. I'm still figuring out coping mechanism I'm used to and dissolving automatic reactions. Rebuild your self-worth through action instead of pity. Every time Luke does that, every time he says I was wrong instead of building a case, every time he sits with the discomfort instead of dumping it onto someone else, he proves to himself that he can't handle reality. And the more he trusts his own ability to handle reality, the less he needs to manipulate people and force closeness that should be freely given. The patterns I've described aren't only about how you treat the people around. It's about how you treat yourself. Whether you meet a setback with curiosity or collapse into the familiar role of someone the world is against. Recognizing this pattern in yourself does not make you a bad person. It makes you an honest one. A dishonest person would have turned this video off within the first minute. A dishonest person wouldn't be sitting with this discomfort right now. The fact that you are here, that you're willing to see this, that you're considering the possibility that you've been the one doing it, that's willingness to grow and create prosperous relationships. My last video was about how to protect yourself from someone else's manipulation. This one was about how to stop being the person someone else needs protecting from. Both videos are about the same thing. They are about taking your own mind seriously, about trusting your judgments enough to face what's real, even when that real is uncomfortable. If this video speaks to you, like and subscribe. Through my videos, I explore how people can overcome their limiting beliefs, develop genuine self-esteem, and become their own solid ground. I'm Daria, and see you soon!